I am Brandimus Maximus Barconius, and I will have my six-pack in this life or the next. Let me cut right to the chase. In 30 working days, aka 6 weeks, I was able to go from 195 pounds to 185 pounds by training like an ancient Roman legionary. Today I'm going to give you my complete training program withholding no information, so if you want to replicate these results for yourself, awaken your inner legionary, and get leaner in just 30 days, this is going to be the video for you. So I'm going to be dividing this video into different sections of subject topics, and I'm going to be putting that information down in the description below. So if there's like a specific subject as part of the workout that you're interested in, you can go straight towards that subject, and I will include timestamps as well. But honestly, I hope you enjoy the whole video, and if you do, then go ahead and do that YouTube stuff and like, comment, share, all that good stuff. So firstly, what was the Roman legionary training like? Well, the Roman legionary training was approximately 4 months in length, and during that time they would master a couple of different things. They would learn marching, they would learn weapons, they would learn sparring, they would do physical labor like collecting timber or digging trenches or building roads. All of these things were meant to craft them into a perfect soldier for the Legion. And of course I'm starting with this subject because if you don't have a sword and a shield, then you can't replicate the same program that I'm doing. So we have to talk about that a little bit before we get into the actual workout protocol itself. Okay, so initially when it came to the sword and the shield, what I did was I needed to do a little bit of research and I needed to figure out, okay, well, how tall was this thing? How much did it weigh? So just specifically talking about the scutum or the shield, my original research, just from like Google AI popping up some answers, I was looking within the range of like 20 to 40 pounds for the shield. I thought that was going to be double the weight of what the legionaries carried and trained with, so that was what I was shooting for. And then the sword was going to be anywhere in the 4 to 8 pound range. So actually, after I got into the construction, and we're going to have construction in a different part of the video later on, but when I got into the actual construction, my shield ended up being 26 pounds, and the sword around 2 to 3 pounds. I'll actually get the accurate measurements just here in a moment. But what I do want to say is Google AI actually did me wrong, and when I was doing some more research after I picked up my shield the first time, I started rethinking this whole thing like, wow, this is really heavy. It's 26 pounds, but it's a lot heavier than it seems, especially with how big it is. But it turns out that I watched a reenactor who does like Roman legionary stuff, and his scutum, or his shield, is only about, he said, 3 kilos, which in my estimation is about 6 pounds, so I pretty much quadrupled the training weight of the shield. But, oh well, this is what we have to deal with, so just do better research before getting into the project like I did. Okay, so here is the workout program. I worked out Monday through Friday every week for 6 weeks, so an actual 30 days of workouts. Everything I did with my left hand, I also had to do with my right hand just to keep me balanced. So keep that in mind when I give you all of the reps and everything like that. Everything done with the left hand has to be done with the right hand as well. I would start with a march. I would do half a mile to my training location. Number 2, I would do shield movements. I would do a shield push times 15 reps. And then I would do the shield bash times 10. Then I would do a shield raise times 10. Then let's move on to the sword movements. So I would do thrust times 15, what I was affectionately calling the fly and pullover times 15. So I'm mimicking a fly movement, I'm mimicking a pullover movement by swinging the sword in this fashion. And then I have what I call the quadruple slash times 15. And then we move into our shield and sword combination movements. So we have push and thrust times 15, the good old bash and slash. Sometimes I would do 7 of these, sometimes I would do 10. It really depended on how fresh I was feeling that day. Then we have my push, thrust, swing, and decimate. Some of you Roman geeks will get that last one. This is 7 reps, or again, if I'm feeling really, really strong, 10 reps. Then we get into rock climbing. Now there is a reason for the rock climbing, because I also read somewhere that legionaries, when they would train basically by putting on all of their armor, taking all of their equipment, and then they would have to jump onto these almost like fake horses, or they could train just by getting onto regular horses but in their full kit. So I started adding rock climbing in. I've got this really sick area where I can climb up these rocks, so I would do 3 sets of those. And that was in the first initial weeks 1 through 3. And then when I got to weeks 4 to 6, I actually did 4 rounds of this rock climbing. And then after all that was said and done, it actually takes about, I want to say, 15 to 25 minutes. I would get into my Shepard sling training, and I would sling about 15 to 30 stones. Of course, I've got to march around, I've got to find the stones, and then I've actually got to take the time to, sling them, and I'm just getting into the groove of practicing with the Shepard sling. That's something that most people don't know, but the Roman legionaries, every legionary had a sling, much more so than like a bow and arrow. And then number 7, I would actually march half a mile back home. So throughout the entirety of the day, I was rucking with my shield, my sword, and then occasionally with a weight vest, and I was doing basically a mile of marching a day. And that's the entire workout. The whole workout can be done in about 45 minutes. Most days it took me about an hour and 15 minutes because I enjoyed being outside, and I kind of didn't want it to be over. Okay, so what did I do diet-wise for this workout? I don't actually attribute a lot of the success of losing 10 pounds in just 6 weeks or 30 working days to what I actually did diet-wise. The reason I say that is because I've pretty much been eating the same way for a long time. So what really changed for me was the increase in activity and the increase in consistency. And I really think those two things came together to make a big difference. Now, I'm not saying diet doesn't matter, and this certainly isn't diet advice. I'm simply going to put this graph on the screen of just a calendar, and you're going to see some steak and eggs and ground beef and eggs, and I basically just eat the same thing all the time. Now, what you'll also notice is on Saturdays, we tend to treat ourselves. We have kind of a carnivore-friendly or keto-friendly pancake morning, and then Saturday nights, we like to enjoy some pizza and some pasta. And then I also have wine on Saturday and Sundays, but then I just make it a rule, Monday through Friday while I'm training, no wine on those days. And that's pretty much what I did for the 6 weeks. And that's what I'm saying is I didn't really have to change too much in terms of diet. We already have a pretty, low-key or clean diet, I guess you could say, except for the wine, of course. But that's basically what I did. I didn't change too much. I just gave myself like 2 or 3 rules to really stick to. It's a short period of time, so if you're wanting to replicate it, you should absolutely be able to do that too. All right, now we're going to get into a little Gladius and Scutum shield and sword tour. So I'm going to basically explain to you how I built the shield, if this is something that you're wanting to replicate. Again, what the weights are of the different components and why I chose what I chose. Okay, so firstly, this is obviously the shield. It's going to be pretty big in stature. I'll actually get a vertical shot too so that you can see that of me actually standing with the shield. I tried to get the dimensions as close to I could as what I could find was historically accurate. Of course, depending on what artwork you're looking at or what shield you're referencing, there are circular shields and there are the more rectangular shields. Also, I had to manufacture the curve in this by using some framing brackets, so I'll show you that now. And obviously this doesn't have the metal boss on the front for bashing and protecting the hand. Now, as far as the back of the shield, I've just got some framing brackets in here. I think they're just steel brackets, and it's pretty simple and crude construction. I do want to encourage you that I live in an apartment complex, and I built this entire thing with an angle grinder that was about $35 to $40 that I picked up from the hardware store. I had 1 or 2 cutting discs and I think 1 or 2 flap discs. And I primarily used the flap discs just for sanding out the edges, and then of course a lot more on shaping the actual sword itself. This was not a huge woodworking project for me. I had to make do with very limited space, and also again having to account for not annoying my neighbors with the sound of an angle grinder at all hours of the night. So I had to pick my hours wisely, and I had to pick where I did my projects, and then of course make sure I cleaned up any sawdust afterwards. So if you have a workshop, it'd be a lot easier, but like I said, this is kind of crude. These are just, like I said, framing brackets, and then I think even more framing brackets, and if I really wanted to increase the weight, then I could just increase the amount of these that I have throughout the entire inside of the shield. But like I said, the handle construction, it doesn't go all the way across like you're going to see with other shields, like a Viking shield or something like that. I actually found just by screwing in through both sides that I was able to keep this very, very strong, and it doesn't seem to have any problem holding the weight. Now, as far as the training Gladius is concerned, this was just one solid 2x4. So basically I cut it down, I drew out my shapes on the 2x4, and then what I did was with the angle grinder, the cutting disc, I went in and kind of cut out slats where I needed that to go. And then where I did the majority of the shaping, and you'll see some of the photos here on the screen of how it kind of took shape over time. The flap disc was really, it's basically just like a bunch of little pieces of sandpaper on top of a disc that you attach to your angle grinder. And that's where I did the majority of the shaping on the blade portion. And then with this area here, I already had some chisels, so I just did like a drop cut and then chiseled into it to get that nice hard edge. The leather, I got strips from, I think, like Joann's or Hobby Lobby or something like that, and then I was able to cut those in half and use those strips to wrap around, and then I nailed them into the handle. And then I actually took some more of those framing brackets and I cut them, so I have 2 pieces of steel on this side and 2 pieces of steel on this side to increase the weight, but also to not make it as front heavy. So it was really uncomfortable the first 2 weeks of training until I added the leather handle and the steel on the back. So that's just some things to consider. Again, it's kind of funny how even though this became like a workout, I ended up having to learn a few other things, and it makes you respect kind of the training and understanding of things that they had back in the day, because if you had unbalanced weapons, it was very uncomfortable and you were kind of fighting against yourself. So just having something as simple as like the back of the blade, or sorry, the back of the sword being just as weighted as the front, so you can get your balance more towards where you're actually holding it, that was a big deal for me.